saw Arch Manning walk out there in the spring game, go 19 for 25, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, like he looked awesome. And then the Twitter QBs got out the fingers again, and the Texas fan base started getting fired up again. And I just think it's best for us to have a discussion as to me, what made Arch Manning's spring game actually impressive. We'll talk about that right now. Really quickly, if you're watching this as a one-off video, it's from a show that we do live 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Also on podcast, if you like your podcast. Bottom line is make sure you're subscribed in some way, form, or fashion to this show, The Hard Count, on the On3 YouTube channel. So we appreciate y'all being dialed in with us. So what we saw on Twitter from Arch Manning was the highlights, right? Drops back there, 75-yard bomb for a touchdown, and right away, you had people come out and say, well, it was a busted coverage. Well, it wasn't actually that impressive. And I think the highlights were nice. And we'll talk about what those Twitter QBs had to say here in a second. What I think we saw in the spring game, and the reason why it was impressive to me, we saw the dividends of Arch Manning's redshirt year in 2023. Because compare that to the spring game from a season ago. And he was out there, looked a little bit like the game was too fast for him. He looked a little bit frantic in that first spring game. In this spring game, he stands in the pocket. I don't know the playbook, but it looked like he got from one progression to another pretty effectively, put the ball in the right place, didn't put the ball in harm's way consistently. Like, he ran the offense. He took what the defense gave him. People talk about those deep touchdown passes, and we'll talk about them more here in a second, too, and break them down a little bit in greater depth. But I was most impressed by his 2-minute drill to end the first half. Very calm, very collected, puts the ball in the right place, checks it down, doesn't try and make the big play when it's not there. They finish the drive and get a field goal to end the first half. I thought it was phenomenal. That, to me, was the most impressive thing that Arch Manning did that day. The deep throws were nice, but that was the most impressive thing to me. Now, let's talk about the deep throws, because that was something that drew a lot of heat on social media. Everyone saw the 75-yard bomb, and they saw the defender trailing like 4 yards behind him, and they say, okay, you're impressed with that? That's why you're crowning this dude? This is your king, essentially, is what they were saying. I can make that throw. And the folks that didn't go as far to say I could make that throw were a little bit more measured and would say, well, he's a college quarterback. He should be able to make that throw. And I don't think that's an inaccurate statement to say that Arch Manning should be able to make some deep passes, but we're like dinging Arch Manning for hitting an open receiver downfield and saying it's a thing where the coverage was busted and like it was a fluke. Like, it was a fluky thing is kind of how it was perceived by some folks. Let's unpack that a little bit more. I heard that on Twitter, and my first thought was like, yeah, maybe. Like seeing the broadcast copy at first, guy looks out of position. It's a good throw, but yeah, that DB is trailing pretty far behind. After further review, I think this is also, just to be real, I think this is what the Steve Sarkisian offense does to defenses. Like, was the coverage busted to a degree? Yeah, but also I think when you look at that first touchdown, whatever that safety did, Arch Manning could have thrown a touchdown on. To break it down, what they had was a fly route, a seam route of sorts, and they had a post route right next to it. So what happened was both of those moved towards the safety, and the safety went with the post, leaving that vertical route. Now, if the safety went with the vertical route, the post is wide open. Either choice that safety made, there would have been a big play, more than likely a touchdown pass made by Arch Manning, and it would have looked like a busted coverage. People say, well, yeah, that's busted coverage. It's a spring game, whatever. Yeah, it was a spring game. Go look at the game against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Adonai Mitchell running wide open, middle of the field. Was it a busted coverage? Yes, because Steve Sarkisian forced that busted coverage. He put that defense in a bind. They were able to make plays off of it. Same thing with that deep touchdown pass to Xavier Worthy. Like, you put your playmakers in position to succeed, and the quarterback puts the ball on them. That's good offensive football. Let's look at that third deep touchdown pass he had. The second was really impressive. Shifted up in the pocket, dropped it off to Jaden Blue. That was good pocket presence, but you didn't really hear a lot of the busted coverage kind of talk on Twitter. Let's talk about that third touchdown pass, which also got the coverage must have been busted, easy throw kind of label to it. You had man coverage. You had Isaiah Bond on the outside, I believe, running again, vertical route. He's going deep. You got an in-breaking route from the slot. Slot breaks in. Safety is in the middle of the field. You got one high, and he has the chance to either run with Isaiah Bond or try and jump that in route. From what I could tell, based on the broadcast copy, Arch Manning held that safety in the middle of the field. Isaiah Bond beat his man in press coverage on the outside, delivered a good ball, touchdown. So is it that the defense totally whiffed and had a horrible day at the office? Maybe. I think it's also very fair to say that Arch Manning is just running Steve Sarkisian's offense and putting the ball where it needs to go. So there's a lot to talk about this, and I understand that it's a spring game, so you try and tread lightly with exactly what you're taking away from this one. But here's why I was happy for Arch Manning. One, so much pressure is on this kid because his last name is Manning. And if he had had a pedestrian day, there would have been folks shouting at the top of their lungs, told you he was average, told you he was mid, told you he's his last name. And then you came out of this spring game, and people are saying, well, he's not the number one overall player in the country. Listen, we didn't have him as the number one player in the country here. We had him as the number 3 player in that 2023 cycle. We had him as the second best quarterback behind Nico Iamaleava. So I'm not telling you he's the greatest thing since sliced bread to touch a football, but I do think it's very fair for us now to have this conversation and say he's not a 3-star. All right, just because the last name's Manning, nobody gave him a 2-star bump because of that. And I'll say this again, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, they don't waste their time. They're not recruiting a quarterback that can't throw the football. They don't recruit players of that caliber typically to play quarterback for them. They both offered him a scholarship. They both wanted him to come play for their football team. Is there a quarterback controversy at Texas? No. It's Quinn Ewers' football team. He's going to be a third-year starter. He led you to a college football playoff last year. But Arch Manning is not a 3-star. Arch Manning is trending towards being a really good college quarterback and will be a great option for them if they need to go to somebody else at some point during the season for injury or otherwise. I think that's a fair statement to make. So I understand the thought that, hey, guys are running wide open. Hey, is it just a spring game? I hear that. Guys are wide open, maybe because of the offense and Arch is executing. Is it a spring game? Yeah, but there was a lot of really strong opinions last year during the spring game when he didn't look so good. So just saying now, we want to shout about context this season and this spring game. Maybe the context of it was practice 15 for him a season ago and he was supposed to still be in high school also deserves a little bit of consideration. So that's how we feel about that. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.